Hello, this is Katie with Homeschool Chat, and today we are going to talk about a student with a long-term illness. We're going to talk about how to homeschool a child that has a long-term illness. Now, this can be a child that is going to recover in 3 months. It could be a child that's going to recover in a year or more. So the first thing I think that you think of as a parent is that you want to make your child have as much fun as possible, right? And that's very true. Routine is also comforting to a child. And so, a combination of both of those. Also, if you can get your child engaged in something that they're really, really interested in, then that will actually help them to get better faster, because it'll kind of keep them in that realm of thinking positively, right? So how do you do this? Well, first of all, you probably want to, now it depends on what curriculum that you choose, but you probably want to take a store-bought curriculum that is a package deal, right? It comes with the standard textbook and it will take you all the way through the year with all the different subjects, depending on what curriculum that you buy and how happy you are with it. But on average, you want to take that curriculum and throw it out the window. What you want to do is you want to choose things that your child is interested in. And you also want to remember your basics: reading, writing, arithmetic, and you want to put science and history in there as well, but you want to just keep the basics going, right? Grammar, spelling, that kind of thing. Now, it depends on how old your child is too, because if your child is in high school, you're not going to worry about spelling, right? So what your goal is to help your child to be prepared for after this is over. So after this is over, your child is going to resume life, however that life may look, right? So if your child has this long-term illness and they're 10 and they recover by the time that they're 12, you don't want your child to be any farther behind than they have to be. And here's the thing: if you have this long-term illness, you probably are going to doctor's appointments and you're having procedures done, and there's just lots of time that your child has to be not doing anything, much of anything, right? So what you want to do is you want to keep track of where your child is at, and you just want to creep forward, and there's no pressure, right? So you would choose each subject's textbook, if you're using a textbook, program, if you're using a program, any of those things, you want to choose them individually. And so what you're going to be doing as a parent, and you can include your child depending on, how old your child is and what you're doing, but you want to be on a treasure hunt. You want to be on a treasure hunt for the perfect curriculum for that subject. So if your child is learning how to read, you want to maybe you look online, maybe you go to a thrift store and you look at, sometimes they have old textbooks there. Sometimes there was a shop in Portland that had old textbooks. Well, old readers are really fun. Sometimes they have a lot of fun stories in them. And I remember as a kid getting really caught up in the stories that I was reading and wanting to learn more about them. So when I'm talking about readers, I'm talking about learning to read. Let's see. So science and history are easy. For science and history, you would probably try to choose a kit, like a kit for science. Sorry, not for history, but for science. So for science, you would choose a kit, something that your child could do, an activity. And depending on what your child's long-term illness is, would be the kind of experiments, science experiments that you would want your child to do. Now, if your child is in a position where there's no experimenting with electricity or anything like that, there's just not going to be any bouncing around the room trying to figure out what happens when I do this, that kind of thing, then you're going to want to choose shows. You can do videos. You could do like YouTube learning videos, all sorts of things like that. So choose what's right for you and try to think about what your child is going to be doing and try to think about what your child is going to think is fun. Now for history, I love to do history projects. So you can do things from, let's see, for the younger grades, it would be geography mostly, right? So in the beginning, you might want to start with geography of the United States and have your child go through each state and see, maybe go through each state like they're a tourist and find out what they would like to do in each state, as well as learn geography. So learn the terrain. What are their tallest mountains? What are their most extraordinary geological features? Learn about the state that way. And then you can make a project by saying, okay, we're going to do this for each of the 50 states. So that would be a project that you could put together. If you want to do say it's high school and you want to do a history project, and you are making your own curriculum at this point, right? If you find a curriculum that you like, that you can purchase, that's fabulous. What I did for a couple of books is I went to Barnes & Noble and I found an actual book that had these wonderful, wonderful pictures in them. And I purchased that for my curriculum for, I believe that one was science, but you can do that for history. You can choose a time period of history that your child is interested in and build upon that either way, right? Or different history events that happened and have your child read about those history events. And then, along the way, you would find out what happened in between the times. So if you have a child that has a long-term illness, think of fun things. Think of things that are going to engage your child. And don't be afraid to just go on a treasure hunt. Look in secondhand stores. Look at Barnes & Noble. Look online. I like to touch things and look at them and turn the pages. Online, I get a little nervous because sometimes they don't give it. They'll give the cover of the book and maybe 1 or 2 pages and then they're done. Well, what does the rest of the book look like? You have no idea unless you buy it, right? But also, if the book is cheap enough, maybe it's worth it. So workbooks are also fun because you definitely know where you've started and stopped, and usually workbooks are a little bit more engaging. So that's about all I have for today. I hope I've helped you, and if you like this video, please check out my website at homeschoolchat.com. I'm also on Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful day.